welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 331, and today's date is April 3rd, 2014, and the title of this episode is Disarming the American People Using Mass Shooting False Flags. And we saw what happened yesterday at Fort Hood. We had a shooter that was inside of Fort Hood shooting people, and again, we understand why all of this is happening. We understand what the government is trying to do. We understand they will try to use this to push gun control and pass laws that will limit and disarm the American people. And this is their entire plan. They do this very incrementally. They use these events each time to push their agenda. They check to see how the people are reacting to them. If they're getting good traction on the story, then they make it a bigger deal than it really is, and they continually push this forward to push their agenda to where they want it to go. And we have to remember, and I've said this before, we know the Dianne Feinstein bill is pending in the Senate. It was voted on during the Boston bombing. It was voted down. The president stepped in and said, please do not remove this. Leave this pending in the Senate. So they did. John Kerry signed the UN Arms Treaty. It is now pending in the Senate, and that's where it sits. And these two bills are sitting there waiting for the event. And the event that will come along, it could be this one, it could be now the next one, we'll have to see how this plays out. They need to do a test to see if they have enough votes to push these bills through. So what they do is they look at the event, they ask their constituents and all the people around them, what do you think? Or will we be able to push this through? And if they can, they push and push until these bills get through. We have to remember the president has already created all these executive orders that back the Dianne Feinstein gun bill and the UN Arms Treaty, and we can see all this taking place. And it just so happened that it was a military officer that was having problems with psychological problems with PSPD, and he was on medication. So we can see how this is all starting to play out. We'll get into that a little bit later in this report, but let's start off with the economic collapse news. And we understand that all these unemployment numbers are completely fake, fabricated, manipulated. And what we're seeing right now is the initial claims are coming in, and they miss again by most in 5 weeks. And what everyone needs to understand is that these unemployment numbers that are being fed in, first we know the Census Bureau has been given fake information, falsified information, and they were caught, and they're doing an investigation right now. But when we look at the numbers that are actually coming in and we take a look of what they're trying to tell us, those people who are actually on unemployment are not counted as unemployed during this time period. Those people who are on extended unemployment are also not counted in these numbers. Those people who search for jobs on the internet are not counted in the job numbers. Those students who come out of college, who've never had a job but are looking for one, are not counted in the job numbers. So we can see what is happening here. They're continually manipulating all of these figures to fit what they want. And again, what they want is to keep this illusion alive, so we continually believe that we are in this type of recovery. And this is what they want us to believe. And of course, we understand that the economic indicators that we see what's going on, do not match what they are telling us. Retail stores closing, people being laid off by the thousands. It makes no sense. Real estate applications plunging, the companies laying off people in their mortgage departments. All of this makes no sense whatsoever. And what we're seeing right now is that the U.S. trade deficit reached its highest level in 5 months. The U.S. trade gap with other countries reached about $42.3 billion in February, the highest level in 5 months. According to the Commerce Department, the figure is 7.7% higher than the $39.3 billion deficit in January. The higher trade deficit is due to a lower demand for U.S. products such as commercial aircraft, computers, and farm goods. Well, we know why people aren't getting our farm goods, our food, because most of it is GMO. Most of the countries are rejecting it, and we can see why the farm goods aren't doing well. And also we have to look at, exports fell 1.1% to 190.4 billion, and imports edged up by 0.4% to 232.7 billion. A higher trade deficit can slow countries' economic growth because it means fewer sales of American products and services abroad and a higher purchase from their rival foreign companies. So we can see what is happening right now. The United States right now is in big trouble. People do not want our products, so they're not buying them. We have many, many people unemployed here in the U.S. We have no manufacturing at this time. The manufacturers that we do have, like the automobile manufacturers, are showing that they're still producing by channel stuffing the lots of dealerships, and they're continually doing this. And they're showing, and as they're producing these cars, they're producing shoddy work where now all these cars are being recalled because of a ignition switch problem. So we can see what is happening. The United States is being held together by tape, spit and glue here, and it is so fragile that one little thing will bring the entire economy down. Now, the older generation, they are having a very difficult time making ends meet. Why? Because food is going up, energy costs are going up, and their retirement benefits are staying level. They don't increase with inflation. So as food goes up, like milk, for instance, I track that. When it goes from $3.59 to $3.89 to $4.15 to $4.25, the older generation has a very tough time keeping up with this, and they're starting to get part-time work to help make ends meet. But as prices continually go up, that part-time salary doesn't increase as fast. It pretty much stays level. So what a lot of the older generation are starting to do is they're starting to go back to reverse mortgages. And this is a specific type of home equity loan available only to people age 62 and over, which has added the benefit of not carrying any interest payments and is only due when they pass away. And we can see this is what they're all turning to right now, and we're seeing that originations are up 20% in 2013, and they're continually going up because they cannot live on what they're making because of inflation. So when you're looking at an older guy or an older woman who's working as a cashier at Walmart or any other store, and you're wondering, how are they surviving? This is one way. They have the part-time, they have their retirement money, and now they're doing reverse mortgages just to get that cash up front. Now, Christine Lagarde is out there, and she's giving everyone a warning, an economic warning, and she's saying that the global economy could be heading for years of subpar growth. She warned that without brave action, the world could fall into a low-growth trap. Now, we know what she's talking about because we see out in Europe that these nations out there have a huge amount of debt. There is nobody working. The youth unemployment is 40, 50, 60% depending on the country. There is no foundation for the future. We know exactly what's happening. We see that most of these countries are in a recession/depression, and this whole entire thing will become crumbling down. Now the question is, what is she talking about when she says without brave action? What is this brave action? Is it some type of an event that will completely drastically change what is occurring at this time? That's what I'm thinking it is. Now, there's another billion out there who's saying that we need to be very careful at this time because another horrific stock market crash is coming, and the next bust will be unlike any other we have seen. And we're seeing this from a lot of people. I mean, Soros right now is betting against the market. Goldman Sachs right now is telling everyone to get into the market. Now, we've seen this before where they're saying, oh, the S&P is going to rise much higher, everyone should be getting in. We saw this during the subprime securities where they said everyone should get into the subprime, and they had bets against it because they knew it was garbage. This again happened in 2013 in April, where they said, you know, you better sell your gold right now because the price of gold will be falling. They had tons of people sell their gold, and as gold came down 50, 100, 150, 200, they were purchasing it like crazy. So now they're telling everyone to get into the market because they see it's going to go up, up, up. Guess what they're ready to do? They're pulling out, and they're probably betting against it at this time. Now, yesterday, J.P. Morgan, or maybe it was 2 days ago, J.P. Morgan, you know, they were not going to process some payments from Russia's embassy in Kazakhstan, and all of a sudden they backed off now. They spoke to the government in the United States. They told them to back off, and now they have completely backed off, and now they will be processing all those payments because the government realizes that the United States economy is fragile. Russia is taking action right now. They are pushing the no dollar campaign where they're making deals with many, many countries. They're creating their own payment system, and they're bypassing the dollar wherever they possibly can. And right now, the head of VT Bank has urged Russia to start transitioning to ruble payments with all its trading partners, including China and Western Europe, adding the export companies should lead the way in adopting the change. He also stressed, and this is coming from Andrei Kostin, he stressed that half of Russia's exports and less than half the country's imports target Eurozone countries and the dollar zone, and they want to trade completely in the ruble and no longer in the dollar. And to push this campaign forward, we understand that they're making deals with China, they're making deals with India, and they made a deal with Iran. Now they're making a deal with North Korea. So this is all coming full circle here. This is going to have a boomerang effect on the United States. All these countries will be dealing not using the dollar. They're going to bypass it completely. Moscow says future trade with North Korea will also be conducted in rubles. Remember, their rubles are now backed by gold. North Korea and Russia on Friday strengthened ties by signing an economic development protocol agreement with the aim of increasing annual bilateral trade to $1 billion by the year 2020. So this is another country that is completely doing deals with Russia, not using the dollar, not having to convert or do anything. It's completely bypassing. And China's doing the same thing across the globe. They are making deals with many countries like New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, Iran, Syria, Saudi Arabia, England, Canada. Some of these places are becoming clearinghouses. Some are doing bilateral deals with China using the yuan or renminbi, and we can see all of this is being pushed forward, and all of it bypasses the dollar. So this is a direct threat to the central bankers and to the dollar, and this is why you see the buildup all over the world for war. This is what they are pushing right now because no one is doing what the central bankers want. They're actually doing the opposite at this point, and they need this war to cover up this entire collapse, which is coming. Now, yesterday I reported on Obama out there saying that 7 million were getting the Obamacare health insurance, and they're all patting themselves on the back. This is fantastic. And there were reports out there saying that we don't know if there are a lot of people paying for this. Well, there's more out there now, and you have to look at this. Fewer than 1 in 300 Americans actually signed up for this health benefit, the Obamacare. The unpublished RAND study, the Los Angeles Times has seen it, found that 23% of new enrollees had no insurance before signing up, and those newly insured Americans, just 53%, have paid their first month's premium. So half of that number hasn't even paid. because they probably got the bill and said, whoa, 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 how much is this? And they didn't even pay. And if they figure it out, and if they're young, they're probably thinking, you know what, I'll just pay the penalty, and if I get sick, I can get into the Affordable Care Act, because they'll take anyone with any type of pre-existing condition or anything, and I'll just sign up and I'll get the benefits. And this is how everyone is doing it, and we can see that these numbers are completely inflated. They don't even know who paid, who didn't pay. Their system really doesn't work, and this is all for propaganda to make people believe that Obamacare is really doing well. It's meant for the people. It's a gift to the people. Everyone should have it except those people in Congress, because they realize Obamacare is terrible. They realize and they know it's a tax grab, cash grab, intertwined with taxes. They realize, why the hell would I take that insurance when I have my insurance, which is about 120 times better? And this is why they never sat in front of the computers, in front of the major networks, to show the American people how great this is by signing up right in front of us, saying, see, now I have the Affordable Care Act. Actually, our leader didn't even do that. Now, if he didn't do that, why would he expect all the people of America to do it? Why? Because we're lower than him? That we should just get this garbage insurance and be happy with it? No, this whole thing was planned to get your money, to pump up the insurance agencies, to bring revenue into the government, to add penalties, and he was doing this because the insurance companies were huge donators to his campaign. He's paying them back. He's trying to bring in revenue, and he's trying to look good during his presidency with giving everyone health insurance. But really what he's given us is absolute garbage. Now, we understand that many countries are trying to break apart from each other, like Catalonia, Venice, and right now there was a plot in Italy. Italian police have arrested 24 separatists, including an organizer on the online Veneto independence referendum. Police suspect them of plotting to take over Venice's iconic street market square with a bulldozer, which they converted into a tank. The activists had been planning to liberate the piazza using weapons from the Albanian mafia and set up a new independent government. They were planning an attack by hundreds of people, some of them armed, and an insurrection from the inhabitants of northern Italy most affected by the economic crisis. The 24 were arrested on suspicion of terrorism, subversion of democratic order, and making and possessing weapons of war. One of the organizers of the referendum, I'll try to pronounce her name, Gianluca Bussato, said the crackdown, which just comes days after the online poll, is a ridiculous overreaction by the state, insisting that she and her colleagues are peaceful Democrats. And we can see this is really taking its toll on all these countries, because these countries are struggling. They have a huge amount of debt. There are people who are unemployed, and that number continually goes up. I mean, we look at Greece, we look at Cyprus, we look at Italy, we look at Spain, we look at France, we look at UK, we look at Germany. They're all having problems. Now, some countries have bigger problems than others, but they're all starting to fit into the mix, and they're all starting to really struggle. Now, there were documents that were released that they were saying that the United States was creating this Cuban Twitter to do a Cuban Spring to have the people rise up and overthrow the government. Now, we've seen this before. We saw it in Ukraine. We see it all throughout the Middle East. We saw it in Thailand. This is nothing new at this point. U.S. aid started Zunzinho, a social network built on text, in hope it could be used to organize smart mobs to trigger Cuban Spring. In July 2010, Joe McSpeden, a U.S. government official, flew to Barcelona to put the final touches on a secret plan to build a social media project aimed at undermining Cuba's communist government. At its peak, the project drew in more than 40,000 Cubans to share news and exchange opinions, but its subscribers were never aware it was created by the U.S. government, or that the American contractors were gathering their private data in the hope that it might be used for political purposes. So we could see what they were doing here. They were gathering this information to start something to overthrow the government. And this is what they've been doing all along. I mean, they were doing it in Syria. They do it in Venezuela. They're doing it in Ukraine. They create these groups. They rally everyone up. And this is part of the playbook that they have. And they use the same playbook over and over for each one of these countries. Now, since this time, the Twitter, the Cuban Twitter, has been dismantled. It just disappeared one day. They ran out of funds to continue this going on because they weren't getting anywhere with it. Almost like the Syrian war, where they've been doing this for 3 years, and the rebels are losing the battle right now, and they're really not getting anywhere with it. And again, this is how the government continually pushes the banksters' policies and pushes their agenda into every single country to prop up the dollar, to set up that private Western central bank, to issue more currency out with debt attached to it, to loot the country of their assets, and this happens with every single country. Now, if those countries have natural resources like oil, they can be put on the U.S. dollar, and every country that wants to buy oil from that country, they have to use the U.S. dollar, so they have to keep U.S. dollars in reserves. And this is how they continually prop up the U.S. dollar all over the place. And right now, it's backfiring. Countries are now trading without the U.S. dollar. A lot of the countries that were taken over by NATO, the United States, are now fighting back against the central bankers, the United States, and they want their countries back. And as this movement goes forward, this is going to have a direct threat on the U.S. dollar, and a lot of countries will stop holding it. And this is what they're trying to stop right now, and they're continually trying to prop it up for as long as they possibly can, because they are trying to get this war started everywhere, in Iran, in Syria, with North Korea, with Russia, with China. They don't care where it is. The players are the same, and they're just continually pushing their agenda. Now, the CIA is planning to overthrow the Venezuela government via university groups. The Central Intelligence Agency is planning to overthrow Venezuela's government by using student organizations throughout a wide variety of educational institutions in the country. And this is coming from an ex-CIA collaborator, Raul Capote. He admitted to one media source that universities are being used by the CIA as the driving force and are making up the destabilizing opposition student movement the nation is presently dealing with. So we can see this agenda is definitely going forward. Venezuela has a lot of oil. They would love to get that government out of there, put a puppet regime into Venezuela, and institute a central bank, put their oil on the U.S. dollar to continually prop it up. And these are their plans, and they've been trying to do this in Venezuela for a very long time. Now, there was another report saying 25 Ukrainians, citizens suspected of masterminding attacks in Russia. Russia's Federal Security Service has reported the detention of 25 Ukrainian citizens suspected of masterminding attacks on the territory of Russia. 25 people have been identified and detained as a result of measures performed in connection with the obtained information about the intentions of members of the so-called Maidan's right sector to carry out sabotaging and terrorist acts on the Russian territory between March 14th and the 16th of 2014. This all goes back to the coup d'etat. This goes back to what was planned back in February, and this is all being now coming out, and we're realizing that all these people were involved. We have recordings that it was a coup, that it was set up by the United States government. We see the false flag in Turkey. John Kerry was implemented in that, and as they got that started, they can bring NATO in through the back door into Syria with the United States troops, but that fell apart. They are becoming desperate everywhere, so they're trying everything. Now, right now, NASA is suspending cooperation with Russia at this time because of the Ukraine crisis. The United States has suspended contact between NASA and its Russian counterpart over the ongoing situation in Ukraine. And Russia's saying, well, and the only thing that's keeping going is the International Space Station. They will not cut that off right now. But Russia's saying, we didn't even receive anything about this. There were no official documents, and we just heard about this. So they're a little confused of what's exactly going on at this time. Now, we understand that Ukraine, Crimea has split apart from Ukraine, and now Ukraine government is putting their officers and patrolling the border of Crimea this time because they're part of Russia. And this is kind of that they're admitting that they are part of Russia because now they set up the borders. They're patrolling the area that borders Crimea at this time. And again, this whole entire Ukraine incident is being pushed and pushed and pushed to try to create some type of war. And yesterday I said there was a U.S. Ship moving into the Black Sea, and it looks like it is the USS Donald Cook, a guided missile destroyer based in Rota, Spain, and will travel to the Black Sea in the next week or so. And according to one senior defense official, the ship will take part to be scheduled in exercises with allies in the region. And we know why they're doing this. They're flexing their muscles. Yes, we're bringing ships in there. Russia's doing military exercises. And all of this, again, is to continually push the idea that Russia is building up soldiers and they're going to invade Ukraine. And they're continually doing this. And now, of course, they're saying Russia's also going to invade Moldova. And again, if they really wanted to do this, they would have gone ahead and done it. They didn't need to have a referendum in Crimea first. They could have brought their soldiers because they were there already because of the agreement they had. They could have brought more soldiers in, moved into Crimea, and moved into Ukraine. So why would they invade Ukraine right now? It would have been the same exact thing as before because this is all propaganda. And here's some more propaganda. Admiral warns that the risk of nuclear conflict is growing with Russia. Russia has been hiding and building strategic nuclear forces behind our backs, and we didn't know about it. And we should be very, very worried about that they're building these nuclear weapons. And this report went on to say that State Department cables sent to Washington early this year included dire warnings that Russia is vastly increasing its nuclear arsenal under policies similar to those Moscow followed during the Soviet era. So what they're really doing is they're bringing back the Cold War, and we're going to see a buildup of nuclear weapons on both sides, and they're going to fire nuclear weapons at us. And again, this is the same propaganda that they use all over the place. I mean, the propaganda out of Iran for the last 30 years has said that Iran is creating nuclear weapons and they'll be ready in 3 to 5 months. And this is over a 30-year span. In one of my reports, I forget which one it was, I broke it down for each couple of years that they've been saying it. And they continually said it, and they're still saying it, but the Atomic Committee was in there. The UN Security Council for Atomic Energy was in Iran. They see no signs of any type of nuclear weapon or anything like that whatsoever. And again, this is propaganda, just like they're telling us there's 40, 100, 200,000 troops being built up on Russia's borders. Now, right now, we understand that Assad is pushing the rebels back. They are winning. Putin right now is flooding the Syrian government with more weapons, defying the U.S. By sending these weapons in to help Assad completely wipe out the rebels and take back the country. Now, what we have to understand is, will the central bankers allow this to happen? And what will they do? And we can see they've tried many different things. They've tried, if we go back in time, they've tried the chemical false flag attack back in 2013. They tried the humanitarian route. They tried the war crime route with the UN. They tried the Geneva II talks. They tried the false flag with Turkey by sneaking military men in from the Turkey side into the Syrian side, and they were supposed to fire missiles into Turkey to say, look, Syria is now firing against Turkey. We should bring in NATO troops and U.S. troops and invade Syria. But that fell apart. The recordings were out there. Erdogan was trying to censor Twitter and other social networks. That completely fell apart, and now they're allowed to have Twitter back because the courts ruled that it's unconstitutional. And we can see they've been trying many different things. They're trying, the next thing on their list was another chemical false flag attack saying Assad was gassing the rebels and their own people. And again, this is falling apart again because there was intelligence that was intercepted, so this is not going forward right now. So this is the part where I'm very worried about because, as we can see, Russia and the United States had an agreement with Syria to remove the chemical weapons, and right now there's a huge amount of fighting going on in Latvia. The movement of chemical weapon stockpiles has been suspended at this time. Now, we know what the U.S. government has done before. They are telling us that Assad has been stalling, that he's been holding back, that he's been keeping chemical weapons secretly, but there is a huge amount of fighting going on. And this is from a UN official that confirmed that there is a huge amount of fighting going on in this area. They had to suspend the movement of chemical weapons, and again, they are going to try to use this to say Assad is stalling right now, and they don't know if they can remove all the chemical weapons out of the country by June 30th. Now, we have to remember the timetable here. They have from now until July, because the elections, again, are in July, to re-elect another president in Syria, and I believe Assad is running again. Now, if the people vote him in, it's a very hard case to say, look, the people are afraid of him, he's committed war crimes, if the people vote him in. They also created new laws in Syria where it says you need to be a Syrian citizen, live in Syria for 10 years before you can run for president. And most of the mercenary soldiers, the paid rebels, are not Syrian and they haven't lived there. So this poses a problem, and this is a very big problem, and they are running out of time. And we can see that their next step, because they understand every single other false flag has failed, and they understand the polls are very low, when they try to say that this country is doing something to their people, oh, we should go to war in Ukraine, and the people in the United States say, no, we shouldn't be in Ukraine, we shouldn't be in Syria, we should have nothing to do with it, and they realize this. This is why they are getting desperate. This is why this next event will come home to the United States. And I wouldn't be surprised if it hit some places in Europe to bring them under the umbrella to say, yes, look what has been happening here. Everyone is getting attacked at the same time. Now, U.S. regulators are out there, and they're saying they're very worried about these cyber attacks on ATM machines. A group of top U.S. regulators on Wednesday warned about the threat of rising cyber attacks on bank websites and cash machines, urging the industry to put proper measures to place guard against this type of attacks. And they're saying these recent attacks allowed criminals to steal about $40 million from just 12 accounts, far exceeding the actual balance held by the clients. Now, what they've been doing is they've been attaching malware on emails, which are phishing emails. People clicked on it. This malware got into the system, and it stays dormant in the banking system. When they call on the malware, it allows them to change the account numbers, the amount of money that it's in the account, and it allows them to change the amount they're allowed to withdraw from the ATM machines. And they're saying if this continues, this could have the ability to bring down the banking system. And they're warning all bank officials now to be on the lookout and get everything up to snuff here to make sure that this malware is not sitting on their systems. And again, this is all in preparation for the next attack. They're building this up, letting you know what is coming. Now, there's a report out there that's saying that classified nuclear weapon drawings are missing from their labs. Classified design drawings used in the manufacture of nuclear weapons have not been properly and reliably maintained by nuclear weapons labs managed by the National Nuclear Security Administration, the Department of Energy Inspector General said. The NNSA sites could not always locate as built product definition or associated drawings for nuclear weapons and components in official records repositories. So these drawings are gone missing. They don't know where they are, and they're worried about this, that somebody has this type of paperwork and they're building a nuclear weapon, a makeshift nuclear weapon. Now, we have to put all this together. What we're seeing now is The Malaysian flight, believe me, that did not crash into the ocean. It is gone. Israel has a duplicate plane. It has a longer range than the plane that went missing. That plane that they have in storage can fly with a full tank of fuel around 12,000 miles. It looks just like the plane that disappeared, and they're keeping it and storing it at this time. So we really understand that pretty much this plane will most likely be used for some type of false flag event. It will be put into use. It will be holding a cargo in the plane, some type of nuclear or chemical explosive, most likely probably a nuclear type of weapon. There are nuclear plans that are missing at this time, and we can see all of this information is all starting to come together, because just recently, in a couple of reports ago, they're saying medical isotopes are also missing, which would enable someone to build some type of nuclear dirty bomb. So all of this is starting to fit together now, and we can see where they're going. They're building up Al-Qaeda, lone wolves, and just recently, as we know, I reported this about 2 days ago, that the FBI was on the hunt for an Army recruit believed to be planning a Fort Hood-inspired jihad against U.S. soldiers. And again, we know this was a plan to have this person go in and say it was Muslim, it was Al-Qaeda, and all of a sudden, 2 days later, we had a Fort Hood shooting. Now, where are these connected? It seems very strange that they put this report out there, and then 2 days later we had something happen in that exact location. But what I'm taking out of this whole entire Fort Hood shooter, that this seems like this is an agenda to push and clamp down on the veterans and to try to push gun control. This is a litmus test to see if they would have the votes to push these bills through. And I'm going to get into that in a minute and why I think so. Right now, we understand the shooter. He was being treated for mental health issues. He was on some type of medication. And we see that when this incident occurred, the police completely surrounded Fort Hood. Nobody can go in and out. They cut the cell towers so nobody can make calls or take pictures. Very interesting. So we have to understand what happened here. Now, we understand back in 2009, we had a Fort Hood shooting. Now, they didn't learn anything. This person was able to get in there with a weapon. Didn't they have metal detectors? Didn't they have any type of security? I guess not, but I mean, back in 2009, they had a shooting. You would think they would take steps and put security into place. But for some reason, this person was able to get right into the place. And then there was a report there was a second shooter, and then that report completely disappeared. But it always seems there is a second shooter, and then, no, it's only one shooter. And it always seems like the shooter ends up shooting himself. And secondly, we understand there was a report out there 2 days before. How come no one took action to lock down Fort Hood with more security? And why don't the people in the base have weapons? They are trained people that go out and fight for the country using weapons. They are trained to do this. Well, back in 2009, when we had the shooting, President Clinton signed an executive order saying no military personnel will have weapons on the base. Well, how well is that working out? Because if these people actually had a weapon, they would be able to defend themselves. They would fire back. They would have killed or injured that person before it went any further. So these are all the questions right now. So since this time, what is happening is that all the gun control people are out there. We see Chris Cuomo out there pushing a gun control agenda, that people who are being treated for these type of illnesses coming back from war, and this person who was out there, Ivan Lopez, he was not actually in the battle. He was in a support position. But they're saying these people who are being treated for this, veterans especially, should not get weapons whatsoever. John Boehner is out there on Thursday, said there is no question that mentally ill people should be prevented from buying guns, and he's out there saying this. Michael Bloomberg, the mayor, the former mayor of City, New York, the mayor's against guns. He is out there pushing this out there. Days like this is a quote from him. Days like this remind us that killers with illegal guns murder 33 more people every day across America. Well, he didn't have an illegal gun, and this has nothing to do with what he's talking about. And of course, Pierce Morgan's out there, and he's saying it's the gun, it's the gun, it's the gun. And of course, this is, he doesn't have a show anymore, and he never makes sense to me anyhow, but that's besides the point. But what's interesting about this is Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid went into Congress, into the Senate, asked questions around, and said, what do you think about this event? Do you think we can get enough votes to push these gun bills through? And he found out, no, at this time, this event didn't move the people enough. And right now, Reid, who pledged last year to bring gun control legislation back to the floor, said he still is short some votes and won't move these bills until there's more progress and more people that are voting for it. So what is happening is they have these bills pending in the Senate. They just had an event. They wanted to see if it moved the Senate and the people. There are people out there pushing gun control right now. It's all over the news, all over the corporate media. They want to see if they can get the people of America riled up to push the Senate, to push the gun bills, to disarm the American people. This has been their agenda all along. And if this event can't do it, the next one is going to be even worse. And it will be worse than we've ever seen before because they are running out of time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.